Hi, welcome back. Today we're talking about one of my favorite concepts, the minimum viable day. And I'm going to be upfront that this is not a productivity hack. It's not about doing less or lowering your standards. It's about giving your brain something that it desperately needs and almost never gets. And that's a finish line that moves with you instead of staying fixed while you fall behind. If you've ever ended a day feeling like a complete failure, even though you actually did things, this video is for you. If you don't know me, my name is Shannon Schroeder. I am the F-Bomb coach, and I help ADHD women build sustainable systems for their businesses and their lives. So let's get into it. Before we talk about the solution, let's name the problem. Most productivity systems are built on a set of assumptions that don't hold for neurodivergent brains. They assume that your energy is roughly the same every day. They assume that if you planned something yesterday, your brain's going to cooperate with that plan. They assume that motivation and focus are things that you can generate on demand through discipline and habit. And for some people, some of the time, that's close enough to being true. If you have ADHD or any kind of neurodivergent wiring, you already know that your brain does not work on a consistent schedule. Some days you're on fire and you do 3 weeks worth of work. Some days you sit down at your desk and your brain simply will not load. And a productivity system that doesn't account for both of those realities is going to fail you regularly. I want to pause here and say something that I think is really important. The fact that your brain is unpredictable does not mean that it's broken. Variability is actually a characteristic of neurodivergent wiring. It's why some days you can hyper-focus for 6 hours and produce something absolutely incredible, and other days the same task feels like you're moving through concrete. Both of those situations are your brain. Neither one is a lie. The problem isn't the variability. The problem is that most productivity systems are built for only the good days, which means on any other kind of day, the system doesn't fit and you end up feeling like you failed. We need a system that works across your full range of days, not just your peak performance days. So what actually is a minimum viable day? It's the smallest version of a productive day that you can look back on and honestly say, yeah, that counted. It's not your full task list. It's not your ideal day. It's the floor, the baseline, the thing you're protecting no matter what else happens. So think of it this way. Every day you sit down with some version of a plan, but plans assume a certain level of energy, focus, and cooperation from the universe. The minimum viable day is the version of the plan that holds even when energy is low, even when focus is scattered, and even when the universe or life is being difficult. It's your always true answer to the question, what actually has to happen today? This concept works for any brain, but is particularly powerful in neurodivergent ones, and this is why. When your executive function is already struggling, which is often the case, especially on hard days, the last thing you need is to spend cognitive energy figuring out what matters most. Decision fatigue hits neurodivergent brains fast and hard. If you have a pre-decided minimum viable day and you know what that means, even on your lowest days, you don't have to figure out where to start. You already know. It also addresses the all or nothing thinking pattern that is incredibly common in ADHD brains. When the plan falls apart, the ADHD brain often concludes that the whole day is a loss and it checks out entirely. The minimum viable day interrupts that spiral because there's always a smaller, achievable version of the day still available to you. So you didn't fail the day, you just shifted to the floor plan. So what goes on a minimum viable day? 3 things max. Absolutely. Not 5 things you could probably do on a medium day. 3 things that you could complete even when your brain is running at 60%. Each one should be specific enough that you'll know without any ambiguity when it's done. Not work on email. Respond to 3 flagged client emails. Not do some marketing. Post 1 piece of content. You need to be super specific so that you know when the end is there. At least one item should protect something that matters to your business revenue or your client relationships, because those are the things that compound fastest when they get neglected. And at least one item should be genuinely achievable even on a genuinely bad day. If all 3 items require peak performance, your floor is too high and it will fail you when you need it most. The difference between a minimum viable day and a to-do list. This distinction matters because a lot of people hear minimum viable day and think it's just a shorter to-do list, and it's not. Your to-do list is a collection of everything that needs to happen eventually. It's a capture tool. The minimum viable day is a decision about what today specifically requires. One is a storage system, the other is a commitment. And the key difference is that your minimum viable day is decided in advance. Ideally the evening before or first thing in the morning before your brain gets pulled into the chaos of the day. You're not figuring out in the moment when your executive function is already taxed. You're working from a pre-made decision. That's the whole point of having it created, is that your future self is doing your current self an enormous favor. If you're not sure what belongs in your minimum viable day, here are 3 questions that will help you figure it out. First, if you woke up tomorrow with a fever and could only do a couple of things before going back to bed, what would they be? That's a fast way to strip away the nice-to-haves and get to the actual must-haves. Second, what would make you feel okay about today, even if nothing else happened? Not proud, not accomplished, just okay. Okay is the floor. Third, what, if you skipped it, would create an actual concrete problem? A client without an answer, a deadline missed, a revenue opportunity lost, versus what would just feel uncomfortable to skip. Discomfort is not a good filter for minimum viable. Actual consequences are. Use those questions and your minimum viable day will become very clear very fast. One thing I want to offer is that your minimum viable day doesn't have to be identical every day. You can have a few versions built for different scenarios. A low energy day version might focus on protecting client relationships and getting one revenue touching task done. A high chaos day version, when the unexpected has already eaten up half your morning, might just be one communication task and one thing that helps you feel grounded enough to keep going. And for sick days or genuine crisis days, your minimum viable day might be one single thing. Honestly, on some days, the most viable version of the day is rest, recovery, and not making things worse. And that counts too. The goal of the minimum viable day is not to squeeze productivity, every ounce of productivity out of your body and have nothing left. It's to give yourself a finish line that's reachable. And I know that what some of you were thinking, so we want to talk about what your minimum viable day is not. It's not a permission to coast. It's not a way to justify doing the bare minimum all the time. On your good days, on your high energy days, your everything is clicking days, you do more. You go after the ceiling. You execute on your full plan and then some. The minimum viable day exists for the other days, which for neurodivergent brains are not rare exceptions. They're a regular part of the landscape. The minimum viable day is a safety net. You use it when you need it. On the days you don't need it, you don't use it. Over time, you'll probably notice that having the safety net actually makes you more willing to attempt bigger things on your good days because you know that there's a floor that catches you if things go sideways. So let's talk about making this an actual practice instead of just a concept. The minimum viable day works best when it's set before the chaos of the day begins, the night before or first thing in the morning. Before email and messages and everything else comes at you, you decide what your 3 things are. Write them somewhere physical, a sticky note, a whiteboard, an index card on your desk. Not just in your head, because your head is not a reliable storage system on hard days. When something goes sideways, and something will, instead of going straight into spiral mode, check your minimum viable day. Are these 3 things still possible? If yes, the day is salvageable. If the chaos is truly catastrophic and even the floor needs to shift, you consciously adjust it. But you make that call deliberately, not by default, not out of desperation. At the end of the day, you do a check-in. Did you hit your floor? If yes, the day counts. That simple practice changes the way your brain closes out the day, and that matters more than most people realize. Here's your one thing for this week. Every morning for 5 days, before you open your email, your messages, or anything else, write down your 3 minimum viable day items. Specific, completable, honest about your actual energy. Do it on a sticky note or in your notes app. Do it on a napkin if that's all you have around. The format doesn't matter. The practice does. At the end of each day, check whether you hit it. Not whether you did everything, whether you hit the floor. I genuinely think this is one of the highest leverage habits that neurodivergent entrepreneurs can build because it changes your relationship with your own days. You stop ending every day feeling behind and start ending them with evidence that you showed up, that you did things, that you did the important things, and that evidence compounds. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed it and you found it useful, please like it, subscribe, pass it on to some other person that you know that would be helpful, and I will see you in the next one.